not just in children, but also in adults. It's a beautiful way of enriching relationships and teaching folks how to use the gift of our intensity for wildly radical success, whatever that looks like for any of us. So I'm going to incorporate a little bit of all of the things that I like to do, including mindfulness, meditation, and mindful movement tonight to help to restore our nervous system, to help us connect to our bodies and connect to one another. If at any time anyone is engaged in a meditation or any of the mindful movement practice and you start to feel something that is not great, dizzy, like you need to go take care of yourself, please. I may be the, what's it called? Air control tonight, but you all are flying your own plane, as my beloved yoga teacher, Krista Mastrangelo Joyce likes to say. So here we are. The objectives tonight are to connect with our true home, our bodies, right? We are in our bodies from the time that we enter this world until the time that we leave this world. We are with ourselves. And while we give a lot of energy and connection to other people in relationships and the work that we do, sometimes we are not giving the same consideration, love, and attention to ourselves. And that can be harmful for us. It can get in the way of us being the most impactful we can be in the work that we do, in our connections with others, in the ways that we want to make change in our communities and in our world. All of us are here because we have a passion for diversity and equity, and we want to promote social justice, and we also want to learn, and getting into our bodies is a big part of that. So that's the first part, the first objective, connecting with our true home. And then I also want to remind us of our great worth and value. We were born with it. And no matter what we have been through, what has happened to us, how we've been treated, any trauma we may have experienced in our lives, our worth and value is intact. And it may not always feel that way, yet it is that way. And so it is important for us to be reminded, to remind ourselves and to remind other people that there's always the opportunity to connect with that worth when we have that intention in front of us, that we are worthy human beings. And then the other objective is to calm our nervous system and to engage in some practices that strengthen ourselves for the work that we have to do ahead. So I want to talk just briefly about the concept of mindfulness. Many of you may already be on board the mindfulness train, and that's wonderful. If not, just a little bit of a definition. Mindfulness, which is a pretty common word nowadays, most people recognize it and have learned about the practice, is moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness. It's all about paying attention, noticing what's going on in the here and now. Our brains can do a really wonderful job of hijacking our moments, right? If we are under an incredible amount of stress, if we have been through something rough, if we are chewing on something, worrying about the future, thinking about the past, doing our to-do list for the next 4 hours, we are not in the moment that we're in. Yet we're always trying to multitask. We have responsibilities. We have people who need us. And it can be really challenging when our brain is in the driver's seat of our life. And so any type of anxiety, any type of stress, taking us out of our moments and taking us for rides can feel pretty overwhelming. So mindfulness is that practice of noticing our thoughts, creating some space between us and our thoughts, We are not our thoughts. And we don't really want to believe everything we think, because sometimes, especially with things like anxiety, depression, trauma, our brain can lie to us. And we might also have these outside voices giving us messages about our worth or lack thereof, about our power or lack thereof. We have systemic oppression that harms us, every one of us, but not equally. And so in order for us to be effective change agents, to do the work, we need to be in our bodies and be in our moments, and we really can benefit from this. So our invitation tonight is to connect with our bodies, connect with our breath, and create and hold this sacred space for union with ourselves and one another. So it looks like everybody's on board. I love to see the faces that I see. And for those of you who I can't see, thank you for being here with us tonight. I want to talk a little bit about why. Why do we need this? So first of all, I mentioned cumulative stress. You know, for those of you who I can see your hands, have you had a little bit of stress this past year? Or, yeah, okay. I think we're all on board with that. So not only are we, yeah, I love the thumbs up. Thank you for those of you with your cameras off for using the notification reaction. Yes. Okay. So we're living in a pandemic. We got that going for us. We are also in a time of, you know, major social and political, oh, all hell's broken loose, for lack of a better word, in so many different ways. And it needs to. It needs to, so that we can move forward. And I'm sorry if I offended anybody with the H word, but sometimes, you know, I could get more colorful, but I won't, because I want to honor and respect everybody's boundaries around that. But we're in a bit of a mess. And many of us are trying hard to do work to change that. And so in addition to that, we have our social conditioning. And particularly when it comes to our bodies, we have a lot of shame that we deal with collectively. Patterns of personal and political oppression. It's hard to feel at home in our bodies. Lately, I've been tuning into a really powerful author and speaker named Sonia Renee Taylor, whose book, The Body Is Not an Apology, I highly recommend. It is rocking my world right now. And I want to share a passage with you. Sonia is all about radical self-love, and that is her mission. And she is engaging many people in this mission. And I am glad to be getting on board. And she writes, as humans, we are in need of a radical love to transform how our world deals with bodies. Our work must be radical if we are to combat the consistent inundation of toxic media messages, laws, and regulations seeping body shame and body-based oppression into every aspect of our society. Inequity in our government systems, manipulation in our media, no matter the structure under examination, ultimately, each of us bears the personal, social, and political burden of a widespread and deeply troubling relationship with bodies. The results of this reality are nothing short of devastating. Gross inequality and disenfranchisement across social experiences, poor public health outcomes, and unjust legislation are systemic representations of centuries of infusing body shame into every sector of public and private life. That is some truth right there. And there's truth in every word. And so I just want to say it again, The Body Is Not an Apology, Sonia Renee Taylor, The Power of Radical Self-Love. So what Sonia and many others are pointing out is that we are disconnected from our bodies to benefit some. And this disconnect is something that is kind of universal. I mean, I can ask every one of you to share a shame story, but then we would be on here for like, the next 24 hours. I can tell you that some of the things that I remember from my childhood, I was a lanky, gangly girl with big old teeth, and my nickname was Weaver Beaver. And it was a nightmare for me to be in elementary school. And that's just my little, story, right? And I've had other things happen to me where, whether it was being objectified, harmed directly, assaulted, things of that nature that have led my nervous system for years to deal with dysregulation. I'm not the only one with a trauma history. That's another thing we could talk about for a very long time. We all have a biography. And the biography can include physical, emotional, and social pain and harm. And it can also include wonderful gifts. It's not all doom and gloom, right? Hopefully there's something that each and every one of us loves about ourselves. And if not, it's time to get on board with that. It's time to fall in love with yourself, because that is the radical act that can make such a difference in our ability to truly use our bodies to make change. If we are suffering on the inside, it is harder to connect on the outside. If we are having courageous conversations, if we are trying to break through our own illicit bias, if we are trying to break through our own privilege and unpack that, if we are trying to stand up for our rights and be seen and heard with our integrity and our dignity intact, guess what's coming along for the ride? It's our bodies, okay? So enough of my talking. I am going to engage you in some activities, but I also want to invite anyone to speak up if they have something that they want to share. I'm going to leave a little time at the end for some conversation, and I may ask you some questions that you can either chime in the chat or unmute yourself and share. Otherwise, right now, I think it's a good time to settle ourselves, connect with our breath, and get into a guided meditation that's going to help start us on this journey tonight towards feeling a little more self-love. So I'm going to ask you to get comfortable in whatever seat you find yourself in. If you're on the floor, that's fine. If you're outside, like I said, I'm a little jealous, but I hope it's lovely and that you are, enjoying wherever you're seated. So make yourself comfortable. I invite you to either close your eyes or soften your gaze and maybe look away from the screen, to listen and to follow the instructions, connect with your breath, and really be in your moment here. If you are seated or lying down, feel the connection between either the back of your body and the ground below, or your seat and the chair underneath you. If you're seated and your feet are on the floor, feel the connection between your feet and the ground. If you're seated, lengthen up through your spine, dropping your shoulders and letting your hands rest on your thighs. Palms can face either up or down. Once you've settled into your seat and into your body, close your eyes or soften your gaze and begin to tune into your breath. Notice your breath without trying to change it. Notice if you feel tense or relaxed without trying to change that either. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth for a few deep breaths. As you're exhaling through your mouth, You may choose to sigh or to release your breath as if you're trying to flicker a candle. Letting go of any stress or tension or energy you may be holding on to from your day or someone else. As you breathe, become aware of the state of your body and the quality of your mind. Where is your body holding tension? Do you feel closed off or shut down emotionally? Notice where your mind is. Is it wandering? And if it is, that's okay. Or is it at home with the breath? Is your mind at ease or filled with restlessness, negativity, or doubt? Place both hands over your heart and continue to inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Notice how it feels to place your hands over this tender area, this place where you experience love for self and others. Let your breath become smooth and effortless, breathing in and out at your pace. Notice the flow of air moving into your lungs and then releasing back out into the world. With each exhale, imagine you're releasing any negative thoughts that may be lingering in your mind. Continue to focus on your breath. And I invite you now on each inhale to think, I am worthy. And on each exhale, I am enough. Let each inhale draw in self-love, and each exhale release what is no longer serving you. Take a few moments to breathe and recite these words internally. I am worthy. I am enough. And notice how you feel as you say these words to yourself. If your mind wanders at any point, that's totally okay. It's the nature of the mind to wander. Simply bring your attention back to the breath. Notice how your thoughts come and go, whether positive or negative, and simply allow them to pass on like clouds floating in the sky. Now visualize yourself standing in front of a mirror, looking into your own eyes. What do you see? Pain, sadness, love, joy, something neutral? Regardless of what appears in the reflection, tell yourself, I love you. You are beautiful. You are worthy of happiness. Know that what you see in the mirror in this moment may be different from what you see the next time you look. Imagine now that you could breathe into your heart and visualize love pouring out of your hands and into your heart. Let this love warm and permeate you from your heart center, filling the rest of your body. Feel a sense of comfort and calm traveling up through your chest, into your neck and head, out into your shoulders, arms, and hands, and then down into your ribs, belly, pelvis, legs, and feet. Allow a sensation of warmth to fill you from head to toe. Breathe here and know that love is always available for you when you need it. As you're ready, take a few more deep, mindful breaths, and then softly open your eyes and sit for a moment to acknowledge the unique experience you had during this meditation. I invite you to refer back to this practice or any other resource that helps you reset, find a moment of calm, tap into love for yourself whenever needed. It's always a wonderful opportunity to tune into our physical and emotional needs, and something that we don't necessarily often make time for. Okay. So at this time, unless there's any, oh, thank you for the heart reaction. I love that. Unless there's any questions or comments or reactions that anybody wants to share about how that was for them, we will go ahead and move into some mindful movement in our bodies and see if we can't let go of some of the additional stress we may be carrying from this year, from this wild ride we're on in the pandemic, and from all of the important work we're doing. So most of everything that we're going to do tonight is accessible in the seat that you're in. I may invite the opportunity to do some standing or some seated movements as well. If at any time you feel the need to check out, if you have an injury, if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling dizzy, or you need to get up and take care of yourself, please feel free to do that. And otherwise, we'll just see if we can open up some space in our bodies and release some tension and further show ourselves a little bit of extra love and care. So I like to start off with working a little bit with our neck. So many of us are online a lot, whether it's on a computer or on our phones, and tech neck is real and rough. So let's just start first by taking a few breaths. I want you to get centered. Take a nice inhale and sigh it out. Make some noise. When we do an active sigh, we're engaging this super awesome thing in our body called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve runs from our brain all the way down through our digestive system. And it is like this amazing series of nerves and nerve endings that when we engage it, we are engaging the calming, relaxed nervous system that is in play when we do not feel under threat. The part of our nervous system that kicks in when we're under an extreme amount of stress, or we're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or threatened, That is the sympathetic nervous system. And that is purposeful. That is to get us into survival mode when something is in our environment that is scary and we need to act fast. The challenge is that many of us have overactive nervous systems because of trauma or cumulative stress. And we might even read a post on social media or have a conversation with someone who's maybe a bit less enlightened. And then we can get all up in our feelings and our nervous system can completely take over. And our bodies are then, you know, in a pretty tough way. So tonight we're going to focus on what we can do to engage these incredible responses of calm, relaxation, engage that vagus nerve. So we'll start by taking our head, and almost as if you just want to place it right over your shoulders with a spine that's aligned and a chin that's sort of neutral and staring straight ahead. And we're going to take our chin and we're going to drop it towards our chest and just lightly stretch the muscles in the back of our neck, and only go as far as your body needs. Take a breath here. Feel that lengthening. And then we're going to bring the chin up and we're going to reach it up towards the ceiling or the sky, but only as far as is comfortable. We want to keep a little bit of length in that cervical spine, come back to neutral, and then we're going to drop down to our chest again. I invite you to connect with your breath. And we will inhale our chins up, and our gaze up towards the ceiling or the sky, and then exhale, chin towards the chest. Inhale one more time up. And then exhale with the chin back towards the chest. And then we'll bring our gaze and our chins back to neutral. And then this time, almost like we are an owl, keeping your shoulders square, we're going to take our gaze and keeping our chin in line with that neutral position, looking over our left shoulder. And only as far as is comfortable for you. Sometimes it's nice to take the hand to the chin and just deepen the stretch. But we do not want strain. We want a soothing elongation and stretch of these muscles. And then we'll come back to center. Take a breath here. And then we'll head over to the right. And continue with your inhalation and exhalation pattern. Keeping the breath long and smooth. And we'll do that one more time to each side, coming back to neutral and then returning to the left. You might feel a little popping and some release here and there. And we'll come back to center and then return over to the right. And then we'll come back to center. And now we're going to bring our left ear down towards our shoulder for a side stretch of the neck. And sometimes you can help that along just gently by putting your hand on top of your head and only going as far as is right for your anatomy. You are flying your own plane. Taking some long, slow breaths here, feeling that nice stretch through the side of the neck and maybe even into the top of the shoulder. And then we'll release, come back to neutral. Get yourself oriented with the breath. And then we'll go to the other side. Releasing muscle tension is really good for our nervous system. Helps to promote relaxation and create that space that we're meant to have in our bodies versus being all scrunched up when we're tense and stressed. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna visualize like a very large clock face in front of you. And I'm talking like really big, a ridiculously big clock face. And we're gonna start at 6 p.m. and follow our gaze to do some very slow neck rolls. So our eyes would follow the numbers of that clock. And we'll start in one direction, continue with your breath. And this is a good one to do really slowly and intentionally, because so many of us deal with alignment issues and muscle tension from our day-to-day living and activities. And our necks need our help. Okay, when you find yourself back down to 6, then we'll switch directions. I don't know about you all, but my neck is talking to me right now. We'll do one more rotation. And then we'll bring our gaze and chin back up to neutral and take a breath. And just notice this part of our body right now and how it feels. Is it relaxed? Did it wake you up to some tension or pain? If there is pain, just make sure you're taking care of yourself. If you feel a little more space, that's wonderful. But wherever you are, it's also wonderful. So now we're going to move to some shoulder rolls. So we're going to take our shoulders and we're going to bring them forward and up as if they're coming toward our ears, and then back and move our shoulder blades down our back as if they were made of water. And so it's almost like a shoulder wave. I like to inhale on the rise and exhale as my shoulders are released. And then we will go backward and rotate from the back up and forward, down. And you might start to notice that this builds just a little bit of heat in your body as we're warming ourselves up. Okay. All right. So now what I want us to do is, if you are seated on the floor or a chair, oh, I love to see a yawn. That means you're relaxing. We're going to do from our hips and our waist, we're going to do some circles. So you can either hold on to your knees with your hands, and we're just going to kind of do some wide circles, creating some space in our lower back and our hips, moving at the pace that's right for us. I know I've been doing a lot of sitting these days, and this area of my body is also talking to me. So when you're ready, we'll switch directions. And do do 2 more. All right. And when you're ready, we're going to return to neutral. And now we're going to do something that's called cat-cow. And this can be done either seated, and I'll describe that, or I'll demonstrate on the ground. Sometimes it's really wonderful from a kneeling position to get a little bit more opening in your various areas of your spine. So from a seated position, you would exhale and arch your back. So you're moving your chest towards your pelvis, almost like you were a scared cat. And on the inhale, we're going to come back up, and we're going to create that space between our chest and pelvis and arch our back a little bit like a cow dropping their belly. And then we repeat. So exhaling, arching the back, and inhaling, opening up the front of the body. And you can continue to do that for 4 more breaths, or if you are seated, then from a kneeling position, if you're on the floor from a kneeling position, it would look like this. Exhaling and sending the middle of the spine up towards the ceiling, and inhaling, lifting through the head and the bottom, and dropping your belly down toward the floor. And you can do a few more of these at your own pace. I find that these are particularly wonderful for the times when my back is sore and achy from lots of sitting or activity like gardening or anything else that can sort of make us a little tweaked. So at this time, from a seated position or from the ground, if you're on a mat, we're going to do some gentle side bends. And actually, I will move. I'm going to move down to a seated position, and I invite you to stay in your chair or join me in seated position. Okay. So for side bends, what we're going to do if you're seated is just place your hands on either side, or if you are in a chair, that's perfectly fine. From a seated position, we're going to raise up our left arm and then fold over to the right, lengthening through that left side body. And take a breath or 2 here. And only go as far as is right for you, but definitely feel how wonderful that lengthening is, going all the way down through the hips, the lower back, and up through the side body and shoulder. And then we'll return, bringing that left hand down. Right hand raises to the sky or the ceiling, and then we fold over toward the left. Take a few breaths here, feeling that extension in the left side body. And then we'll do that one more time on both sides. Raising left arm up ahead and folding over toward the right. 2 breaths here. Lower that left hand back down and raise the right hand up and lower to the left side. Extending through that right side body. Creating that space and breathing into those spaces in these areas of our body that we're really appreciating and waking up. So coming back to neutral when you're ready. And this time I want you to lengthen your arms out, whether you're seated in a chair or on the ground, And we're just going to take our gaze first and look over towards our right fingertips. And we're going to stretch that arm out as if we were reaching for something wonderful on the counter, and then back to neutral. And then we turn our gaze to the left and we do the same. We reach out for somebody's hand or something wonderful and tasty, and we come on back to center. And then we'll continue to do this at your own pace. Just feeling that stretch in the side body and noticing if there are other places being engaged that are a little different, or they might be the same from the previous stretch. And we're just getting some movement in to our hips. And following our breath. And when you're ready, bring your arms down, because whoo, that can get us warm, can it? And you can roll those shoulders. And now what we're going to do is a little twisting. So I'll demonstrate. I'm going to raise my arms up on an inhale. And then I'm going to bring my left hand over to my right knee and bring my right hand back behind me for a slight twist. And then I'm going to release, bringing my arms back up ahead and repeating on the other side. So this is a bit of a dynamic stretch. We're not holding much on either side. We're just sort of warming up our body in this twisting motion. And follow your breath. Inhaling arms up. Exhaling into your twist. Inhaling arms up. Exhaling into your twist. Inhaling arms up. And exhaling into your twist. And one more time on either side. Inhaling arms up. Exhaling into your twist. Inhaling arms up. And finally exhaling into that left side and returning to neutral. So at this point, if you're seated, either way, we're gonna, if you're on the ground, you can bring your legs out in front of you and maybe bounce your knees up and down, give yourself a little bit of a massage. You could do this if you're seated as well, just to get some movement in your legs, especially if you had your legs crossed. It can be really nice to just give yourself a little bit of a extra love. And so we're gonna take our ankles and one at a time, we'll start with our left ankle. We're gonna do some small circles in one direction. And I want you to stay connected to your breath. We're just gonna do some lubricating of some of these other joints here. And then return in the other direction. And then we're gonna switch to the other foot and do circles in one direction. And then circles in the other. Engaging our fabulous ankles, spreading out our toes, and getting those feet some love. Okay, so the next thing is, and this can be, this can feel very interesting. I love this one. This is almost like, it's called windshield wipering the legs. So it wakes up the hips a little bit. So you're gonna bend your knees. And if you're in a chair seated, you could do the same motion with your feet on the floor, just maybe create a little bit more space between your knees. And we're just, as if they're windshield wipers, gonna move them from side to side, opening up those hips a little bit, waking them up. Mine are definitely stiff from all this sitting at a desk and doing telehealth. So I hope it's feeling good to you all too. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is I invite you to get up on your feet if you like. Sometimes if you're new to the practice of mindful movement or yoga, and you struggle a little bit with balance, I'm going to make sure that you can see my head. Let me adjust my camera. How's that? Good? All right. So you can always use a wall for balance or a chair for balance if at any point you feel like you need a little extra stability. We're going to keep it simple, and we're going to start with a pose called mountain pose. And I really love this. This is a very powerful way to get into our bodies. So take your feet and lift your toes up, but keeping the balls of your feet and your heels down on the floor. And you're going to spread them out. So just giving a little bit of space in between your toes, and then set them down and feel into your feet, the four corners of your feet, equally distributing your weight, recognizing the strength and power in our legs. You can have a slight bend in your knees. We don't want to lock our knees. When it comes to our hips and our pelvis, we want them square to the front and a little bit neutral. Sometimes it's nice to tuck in the glutes and to create a little bit of tension in your abdominal muscles to support your lower back, so that we're not like, you know, a sway back, or some of us are built that way, and that's great. But what we really want to do is make sure that your body has your hips and your abdomen and your chest almost stacked up on top of one another, so that you're comfortable in your body and your spine and creating your space and your sacred vessel. So we'll bring our hands to heart center, bring them together, and take a few breaths here, balancing your weight onto your feet, slight bend in the knees. You can close your eyes if you feel like you want to have that experience. But this is a point where we are the mountain. We are strong. We are ancient. We rise. And sometimes we change shape. Take some breaths here. In your mountain, feeling the warmth of your palms together, releasing any tension in your shoulders. And then we're going to bring our hands down by our side, and we're going to inhale our arms up toward the ceiling, and then exhale, palms facing down, back by our sides. And we'll do a few breaths like this. Inhaling, arms up, and exhaling down to our side. Inhaling, arms up. And you can lift your gaze towards your hands on the inhale. Exhaling, you can drop your chin and gaze down. And we'll do two more of these. Inhaling, arms up. Exhaling, arms down. And one more at your pace. And exhaling, arms down. And so now we're going to do a half moon pose. Inhaling, arms up. We're going to clasp our fingers together. So just so you can see my hands, I have my pointer fingers up almost like a steeple, and my hands are clasped together. Another way you could do this is to grab a hold of one wrist, but we're going to do another side stretch. So on the inhale, pointing toward the ceiling, and then exhaling over to the right. Maintaining your balance, only going as far as is good for you. And then we'll inhale up to the center, and then exhale to the left. And take a breath here, and your side bend. And then we'll inhale back up to center and go back over to the right. On the exhale, take a breath here. Exhaling, and then inhaling back up to center, and one more time to the left. Exhaling, stretching that side body. Inhale here. exhaling, and then returning to center with an inhale, and then our arms down by our side. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to go into a forward fold. And so if you can see me from the side, it will look like you can have your feet hips width distance apart or more together, depending on how you're feeling. If you feel balance might be an issue, this is something that you could do leaning against a wall or a piece of furniture. That would just look like having your feet about a foot to out from the wall, your heels, and you would have your arms up overhead on an inhale, and then folding over at the waist with your knees slightly bent. You're going to reach down towards the floor. If you like, you can have your hands on your shins or your knees, depending upon your anatomy. Some people will go down to the floor. They can touch their toes. Good stuff. Wherever you're at, it's perfectly fine. If you're doing this off of the wall, we can raise, oh, everybody's bending. I love that. I'm going down too. So as you are in your forward fold, just sort of notice how that feels, that stretch in your calves and in your hamstrings. At this point, bend your knees and slowly roll your way up, back to mountain. And we'll do that again. I love a good forward fold. So from mountain pose with your hands heart center, we'll take an inhale, exhaling arms down, inhaling arms up, and fold at the waist forward, and setting your hands on your body wherever it's right for you. Maybe inhaling up halfway with a flat back, and then exhaling back down into your fold. Feeling that nice stretch through the back body. And as you're ready, bending your knees and slowly rolling back up to standing. And you can take your shoulders and do a couple of nice rolls there. And now we're going to do one of my favorite poses. This one really helps me to feel strong and fierce. It's called the Warrior One pose. And so you can either do this next to a wall if you need that extra balance. You're going to take your right foot and plant it onto the ground, spreading those toes, making sure you have a nice good grip. And then you can take your left foot and step back a couple of feet. If you'd like, your feet can be almost in line with each other. The back foot is at a 45-degree angle so that the arch would create a line to the heel in front, or you could have your feet separated a bit if that helps with balance, almost like you were on railroad tracks. So with Warrior One, once we get our legs in position, we bend our front knee over the ankle of that right foot and raise our arms up on an inhale. And you can take your gaze up to your hands. You'll feel that nice stretch in the back leg through your calf. Take a breath here. Bring your hands down to heart center and step back, feet together. Take a breath here. And now we'll take our right foot back and either placing it in line with the heel and that arch, or a little wider as if you were on railroad tracks. We'll take that left knee, bending it over that ankle, and raise our arms up with an inhale. Bending into that front knee. Feeling that stretch through that back right calf. Hands to heart center, and bringing that right foot up to meet the left foot. Okay, so now we're going to move into what's called a 5-pointed star. So feet about 3 feet distance apart, 2.5 to 3 feet, depending upon your anatomy. You can have them closer together or further apart, toes facing forward, arms out to your side. And just take a breath here and feel the stretching of those limbs. Tighten those abs and glutes so that you can have that feeling of protecting your lower back. And at this point, bring your hands to your hips, and we're going to do a wide leg forward bend. So we will inhale our arms up and gently fold over. And you can either have your hands on your shins or your knees, a slight bend in your knees, or you can bring your hands to the floor below your shoulders and take a few breaths here as we elongate through our hamstrings, our abductor muscles, our calves, lengthening that back side of the body. As you're ready, bring your hands to your hips and rise halfway, taking a breath. And then rising up. It's nice to have a pause there because sometimes with an inversion like that, it can throw our blood pressure off a little bit and we might feel a little dizzy. So let's do that one more time. And we'll go arms up ahead on an inhale. And then forward fold. Exhaling, hands to the ground or to the shin or knees. Releasing your neck. Maybe shaking your head gently, no or yes. Feeling that stretch through the back body. And as you're ready, bringing your hands to your hips, rising up halfway, using those core muscles, and then come on up to standing. And take a breath here. Okay, I'm gonna see where we're at time-wise. Okay, 6:30. So at this point, we are going to come back to the floor and extending your legs. Oh, I'm gonna have to do my camera angle again. Bear with me, loves. As I'm down on the floor. Okay. All right, so legs out in front of us, we're going to do a seated forward bend. So sometimes it's nice to take the flesh and move it out of the way a little bit of our sits bones, if you want to do that. And you can have a slight bend in your knees. If there's anyone who has a knee injury or issues, you could put a pillow or a rolled blanket under your knees. This is also something you can do from a chair, and I can demonstrate that in a moment. But right now, on an inhale, we'll raise our arms up, and then we'll fold over, bringing our chest towards our legs, extending our spine, and only go as far as is right for your body. And take a few breaths here, feeling that stretch through the back of the body. Taking those deep, slow breaths. And as you're ready, we'll rise back up on an inhale, arms down by your side, and bring your right leg in, bringing your foot towards the inner thigh. And if you want, you can angle your left leg out slightly, and then we'll do the same thing one leg at a time. So on an inhale, arms rise, and exhaling, folding down over that left leg. Taking a few breaths here. And on your next inhale, raise arms up and down by your side, and we'll switch to extending our right leg and bringing our left foot into the inner thigh. And raising arms up on the inhale and folding over that right leg on the exhale. Taking a few breaths here. And as you're ready on an inhale, raise your arms and your torso back up and bring your hands back down. And now we will take our legs bending at the knees and bringing our feet together. Now, some of us may have tighter hips than others, so that's perfectly fine wherever you're at. You can have more space between your pelvis and your feet, or you could bring your feet a little bit close together, whatever feels right for you. We're gonna take our feet and almost turn the insides of our feet out as if we were looking at a book, opening a book. So with this stretch, we're going to work on releasing in our hips. So with a long spine, take an inhale, holding on to the balls of your feet. And we're gonna gently fold forward on the exhale. Going as far as feels good to you. You want to feel a stretch, but not a strain. And taking a few breaths here, opening up our hip flexors. Feeling that in our abductor muscles. One more breath here. And rise on your next inhale. And then we are going to go down onto our backs for raising our knees one at a time towards our chest. So we'll start with the right knee, bringing it in towards the chest and clasping your hands over your shin or your knee area. And feeling that stretch through the lower back. And then we're going to release that right leg down to the ground and bring that left knee up towards the chest, clasping at the shin or the knee, and taking a few breaths here on this side. And when you're ready, bring that right knee up to meet with the left so that both knees are being pulled toward the chest. Hands on your shins or your knees. And taking a few breaths here. At this point, we're going to prepare for our final resting pose. So those of you who are staying on the ground, release your legs back down And you can let your feet fall off to the side. Your arms will be down by your sides. And this will be Shavasana, or the corpse pose. So you're just resting on the ground with your arms next to you and your legs out in front, trying to release any muscle tension. If you'd like to do this final relaxation in a chair, that is perfectly acceptable. It would be a very similar posture to the one in our first meditation. So at this point, we are incorporating the work that we've done in our bodies and our breath this evening, noticing how you're feeling, and releasing any tension that you're holding on to in your muscles through your breath and your awareness. Relaxing the muscles of your face. Relaxing your jaw. Allowing your tongue to release from the top of your palate down. Releasing any muscle tension in your neck. Releasing your shoulders and your arms. Letting go of the tension in your hands and your fingers. Letting go and relaxing the muscles of your chest and your shoulders and your back. Releasing any tension in your abdomen and your glutes. Letting go through your thighs and your hamstrings. Releasing your calves. Relaxing your ankles and your feet and your toes. Continuing to breathe at your pace. Noticing any thoughts that arise and allowing them to go by like clouds in the sky. This body that you're in is worthy. This body that you're in has tremendous value. This body that you're in is worthy of love. Your love. Every inch. Every curve. Every freckle. Every hair. Every wrinkle. every crease and crevice. Every organ, all your skin, all your muscles and your bones, worthy of love. Priceless in value. As you're ready, you can bring some movement to your fingers and your toes. Begin to deepen your breath. If you're laying down, as you're ready, I invite you to bend your knees and roll over to one side. And you can rest there for a moment. And then make your way back to a seated position. And at this point, I'm going to show you my full face and not have the camera cut off my head. How was that? Thumbs up? Thanks, Veronica. All right, Chrissy. Thank you. Ooh, hearts, claps. I hope that you all are feeling even just a little bit more spacious. You've shown yourself great love tonight by tuning into your body and your breath. And I hope that that it was as beneficial for you as it was for me. I always get a lot out of these unions, and I appreciate you all so much. Annie, I see your kitty cat.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Yeah.
I was so relaxed, and then I had to run in the house.
Did you?
I was like, oh man, I have to get up. I was so relaxed. That was so wonderful. I hope everyone had a great time, and I hope you took the opportunity to give yourself what you needed. I think oftentimes we think we're okay. We're like, I'm okay, I'll be all right. I'll be okay. And we give so much. We give so much on a regular basis. And so what stood out to me was the moment when Wendy made or asked us to say that we love ourselves. And so I think I need everybody to revisit that as we move into our weekend, and just understand that that we have to be compassionate and allow that power that we have to also, give ourselves what we need, the love that we need, and the breathing and saying that, we are worthy and we are good enough. I am worthy, I am good enough. That no matter how hard we work, no matter what we do, that we are still worthy and we are still good enough. What we're doing is enough. Your best is the best. Your best is good enough. And so I hope that you had a moment that stood out to you. If you want to type that in the chat, your moment that stood out to you. Wendy might like that. That might make her feel, better also. So if you had a moment that stood out to you, please place that in the chat. Take some time to show some love to Wendy for helping us to empower and love ourselves a little bit more, to pay attention to ourselves a little bit more. I do want to talk to you for a brief moment about the next workshop. And the next workshop is entitled Theatrical Empowerment and Social Transformation. And so each of our workshops, they all have a competency. For instance, the competency tonight was consciousness of self, which is exploration of values, emotions, attitudes, and beliefs that would cause somebody to take action. So inciting that in yourself, but then using that same energy and beginning to pour into yourself and to others. This next workshop, Theatrical Empowerment and Social Transformation, is about consciousness of citizenship. And this means that we become responsible for our individual connectedness to everything that is going on. And we have a leadership effort, and that effort is to create a democracy, to create a space where we embrace other people, we embrace other ideas, and where it's just not all about us. So think about the transition in the week. So we started off in the beginning of the week looking at this idea that the personal is political. And that means that what happens in the lives of somebody or some group of people, even an individual who is experiencing stress, that we can use that experience that they have to understand the bigger picture and the challenges and things that exist in society. When we see our children, when we see them struggling, we see our students struggling through something, that could be a part of a bigger situation. And so we empower ourselves to use this consciousness of citizenship, to use our minds and our bodies to incite a peaceful revolution, in that we try to solve these problems and we try to do something about what is going on, but we become responsible. So of course, we focused on images and we looked at symbols and we looked at our empowerment stories, and we used those tools to then think back at quadrants of experiences and to use that knowledge tool that we developed of breaking things down and assessing meaning to look at societal issues. So we have that. And then today, we wanted to provide the energy and strength so that you know how to recover, so that you know how to take that deep breath and you know how to give yourself the power that you need in order to go out there. And now on Monday, when we come back, on Monday, we're going to be talking about ways that we then use our body, theatrical movement, how we use our body and the language and the energy to create peaceful spaces and understandings about the realities of life and the things that we're going through. So being interconnected and having consciousness of citizenship, this is our next goal. So I hope that we can thank Wendy for everything that she poured into us, and hope that when she gets done, that she can also pour that into herself. And I know she will, but if she doesn't do enough, I'll pour it into you. I'll give you a big virtual hug. But I hope you're enjoying the workshop so far. It's so important that we take the time to kind of, glance at these different things and then to look at these issues of inclusivity and engaging this from many different perspectives. So this workshop is going to give you a little bit of sociology and interaction, a little bit of meditation and mindfulness, some theater, a little bit of movement and proximity and space, because we know that if I raise my voice and I move back here, or if I come up here and I lower my voice, we know that there's different energy that we're bringing into the room. We're also going to have a little poetry, and then we're going to close it out with power of words and ideas, and checking ourselves and understanding strategies and understanding what inclusivity should be and understanding emotional intelligence and things like that. So I hope you're going to come along for the rest of the ride. I know you're very busy, but we appreciate every second of your time. I appreciate every second of your time. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. And I hope I see you on Monday. But if you're unable to, you know that we'll have a recording. And in that way, we'll have a recording of this too. So if you want to revisit this experience, you can do it again and again at your own pace and on your own time. So thank you so much. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Big love to you all.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording just so that